Rain slanted across the cracked sidewalks like falling glass, the city hissing with impatience as Officer Daniel Hayes shouted for the old man to move along. The veteran stood at the curb, unmoving, his hand resting on a carved wooden cane that seemed older than the street itself. Daniel's pulse pounded. Another delay, another complaint waiting in the radio queue. He stepped forward, anger flaring, and with one careless motion kicked the cane aside. It hit the pavement with a hollow crack, and for an instant, the old man's balance wavered, but did not break. Then Daniel saw it. The handle, a glinting silver star cut deep into the grain, its edges smoothed by time and honor. The veteran said nothing, only looked up at him with eyes that had seen real battle, not the kind fought in uniforms with cameras watching. The silence stretched like a verdict. Somewhere behind the noise of sirens and rain, Daniel felt the faint crumble of something inside, something he didn't want to name. The street held its breath. Daniel bent to pick up the cane, the weight of it unfamiliar in his hands. Heavy not from wood, but from history. Sam's voice, when it finally came, was quiet enough to slice through the rain. "I carried one like that once," he said, not looking at Daniel. "Only it wasn't for walking." The words hit harder than any reprimand. Daniel wanted to explain, to defend the reaction burned into his training, command the scene, assert control, but the words jammed in his throat. He extended the cane awkwardly, and Sam accepted it with a nod that was neither forgiveness nor anger, just acknowledgement. Carla's voice crackled over the radio, asking for backup downtown, and Daniel felt the hollow between duty and decency widening inside him. As Sam walked away, the silver star winked one last time beneath the streetlight, like a ghost reminding him what respect used to mean. Back in the patrol car, the heater humming and the city smeared across the windshield in streaks of color. Daniel replayed the moment on loop. He should have just kept moving, written the citation, done his job. Instead, he'd seen something that didn't fit into the clean logic of procedure. "Respect." Carla glanced over. Her voice measured. "You almost crossed a line out there," she said, not judging, just stating it like fact. Daniel muttered something about disobedience, about control. She shook her head, eyes on the road. "That man earned that star." You didn't even ask what it meant. Silence again, filled with the rhythm of windshield wipers, keeping time with regret. Daniel looked down at his gloved hands, remembering the way they'd trembled when he handed the cane back. He told himself it was the cold. Deep down, he knew better. Later that night, Daniel sat in the locker room long after his shift ended, the clang of distant doors echoing like judgment. His badge gleamed under the flickering fluorescent light, its shine suddenly hollow. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the incident reports, trying to bury what happened beneath paperwork. But then he stopped. The veteran's face flashed in his mind, not as a victim or a suspect, but as a man who'd seen a world Daniel had only been trained to fear. Carla passed by, tossing him a towel and a look that cut through the silence. "You'll see him again," she said softly. "Life's funny like that." When she left, Daniel leaned back, listening to the hum of the city through concrete walls, realizing that somewhere out there, an old man with a silver star cane walked taller than he did. Morning arrived gray and cold. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something in him had shifted, like a foundation cracking beneath a polished floor. He found himself parked outside at a veterans center on the edge of town, not sure why he'd come. The building was small, its flag limp in the wind. Through the glass doors, he saw Sam seated near a window, talking to a young man in a wheelchair, his hand resting lightly on the silver star cane. For a moment, Daniel just watched. The way Sam leaned forward, the way his words made the younger man smile. Then Sam looked up, meeting Daniel's eyes across the glass. No anger, no surprise, just recognition. Daniel nodded, a gesture seeking permission to start over. Sam gave the faintest smile, the kind that forgives without words. Justice, Daniel thought, didn't always need to be enforced. Sometimes It needed to be learned. The precinct hummed with the rhythm of bureaucracy, reports stacking higher than conscience. Daniel sat across from Captain Ruiz, who scanned the body cam footage with eyes that never softened. "You made the department look bad," Ruiz said flatly. The video played. The kick, the silence, the star. Daniel watched himself like a stranger caught on film, realizing too late that truth always looks worse without context. "File your apology and close it," Rui ordered, sliding a tablet across the desk. "We don't need sympathy stories. We need discipline." Daniel hesitated, fingers hovering above the screen. Somewhere behind the glass office walls, the city still buzzed. Another call, another mess to clean up. But this one stayed. When he left the room, Carla caught his arm, eyes burning with quiet defiance. "He's not wrong," she said. "But neither are you. Figure out which one you want to be." The apology form lay unsigned on Daniel's desk long after the others had gone home. The glow from the monitor painted the walls with cold light as he scrolled through background checks on Samuel Rourke. Purple Heart, Silver Star, Vietnam. Lost his son in the Gulf War. The file read like a silent sermon. Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling, wondering when he'd stopped seeing people as stories and started seeing them as problems. Carla's text blinked on his phone. "You okay?" he typed. "Not sure anymore," then deleted it. The rain had started again outside, faint at first, then steady. Somewhere in that rhythm, he thought he heard the echo of Sam's calm voice. Not accusing, not forgiving, just reminding him that every badge carries two weights, authority and accountability. The next morning, Daniel found himself at the Veterans Center again. This time, inside. The air smelled of old coffee and polish. Photographs lined the walls. Faces in uniforms, frozen smiles of men who'd seen too much. Sam was there, helping a young woman sort mail. She looked up first, curious, then wary. Daniel approached slowly, hat in hand. "I came to apologize," he said, the words rough-edged from disuse. Sam's eyes softened, but his tone stayed firm. "You didn't hurt me," he said. "You disrespected what made me stand." Daniel nodded, guilt coiling tighter. "I see that now." Sam studied him, then motioned to the wall of photos. Every one of them stood for something. "You still can." The words hit harder than any reprimand. Outside, the rain eased into sunlight, and for the first time, Daniel didn't look away. Word of the incident spread fast. Edited, shared, distorted. Social feeds buzzed with outrage, officers whispered in corners. Daniel felt every stare like a verdict. Ruiz called another meeting, this time to remind everyone how optics kill careers. Carla defended him softly but firmly, reminding the room that public image shouldn't outweigh integrity. Ruiz dismissed her with a glance. "This isn't about morality, it's about control." Daniel clenched his jaw, realizing the system he served feared reflection more than corruption. That night he drove the long route home, passing streets patrolled by faces just like his. Tired, armored, human. Somewhere beneath the static of the radio, he heard Sam's earlier words, echoing, "You still can stand for something." That evening, Daniel found himself sitting outside his apartment, the city skyline bleeding orange into dusk. He turned the cane over in his hands. Sam had given it to him earlier that day, saying only, "It's steadier when shared." The silver star gleamed, catching the dying light. Daniel thought about the badge resting in his pocket, how both symbols meant the same thing once, service. Somewhere between ambition and protocol, he'd forgotten that. He lifted the cane gently, tracing the grooves in the silver star, feeling the weight of its history, and maybe a fragment of its forgiveness. As the city lights flickered on, Daniel whispered into the wind, "Tomorrow, I'll stand different. It wasn't a vow. It was a beginning. Morning sunlight spilled across the precinct walls like an unwanted truth. Daniel entered with the cane in hand, its silver star catching the attention of every curious glance. He wasn't there for redemption, not yet, but for understanding. Carla followed, whispering, "You're really doing this?" He nodded. Ruiz waited in his office, expression unreadable. "You think this show of guilt changes anything?" Ruiz asked, eyes flicking toward the cane. Daniel met his stare. "It's not guilt. It's reminder." The silence that followed felt heavier than rank or title. Outside, a news crew lingered, waiting for statements, ready to spin morality into spectacle. Daniel turned away, feeling Sam's calm patience guiding him through the noise. In that moment, the line between pride and courage blurred, and for the first time, he chose the latter. Outside the precinct, microphones and cameras swarmed like locusts. Daniel stepped into the noise, uninvited but unmoved. "I made a mistake," he said, voice steady. "I disrespected a veteran, and that moment taught me something about the kind of man I don't want to be." The reporters pressed closer, hungry for scandal. "So what now?" one asked. Daniel looked past them, toward the city's reflection in a rain puddle. "Now I listen." The word spread online within hours. And though the department released a sterile statement, the public saw something rare. Humility. Sam, watching from the veteran's center, smiled faintly, whispering to Anna, "That one's learning how to fight without weapons." That evening, Daniel visited Sam again. The old man was polishing metals in the quiet hall, his movements deliberate and reverent. "You didn't have to do that," Sam said without looking up. "Yeah, I did," Daniel replied. "Maybe not for you. For me." Sam chuckled softly. "That's how it starts." They sat in silence until Daniel noticed a faded photograph on the wall. Sam, younger, standing beside a boy in uniform. "Didn't come home." Daniel's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." Sam shook his head. "Don't be. Just remember him the next time you wear that badge." The words carried no anger, only grace heavy enough to break something open inside Daniel. Outside, the evening light folded into gold, the kind that makes even sorrow look holy. Later that night, Daniel walked through the city streets, patrol car parked, duty forgotten for once. He saw the small things he'd ignored for years. A homeless man's cardboard sign trembling in the wind, a mother guiding her child across the crosswalk he once guarded with indifference. Every corner seemed to whisper back the question Sam had asked without words. "What do you stand for?" The Silver Star cane tapped softly against the wet ground as Daniel walked. Not as an officer, but as a man relearning how to move with purpose. Somewhere behind him a siren wailed, not a call for help, but an echo of who he used to be. When dawn broke, Daniel returned to the precinct, the cane beside his badge on the passenger seat. Carla met him in the parking lot, eyes searching his face. "You're not quitting, are you?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "No, just starting over." Inside, Ruiz handed him a notice, disciplinary review postponed, pending evaluation. The system for once seemed uncertain what to do with a man who'd chosen conscience over compliance. As Daniel stepped back outside, sunlight cut through the morning haze, catching the Silver Star once more. He lifted the cane slightly, as though tipping it to someone unseen. To Sam, to Michael, to every unseen soul who'd carried their battles in silence. The city stirred around him, loud, impatient, alive. This time, Daniel didn't flinch. He walked forward, steady, and for the first time, the badge felt lighter. A week later, the precinct buzzed with quiet unrest. Someone had leaked internal footage, not just of Daniel and the cane, but of other, darker incidents buried in reports. Ruiz's office became a fortress of closed doors and tight whispers. Daniel watched the chaos unfold, uneasy because he recognized the source code of corruption, fear. Carla approached him with a folder. "This came to me anonymously," she said. Inside were copies of disciplinary files dating back 20 years. one name recurring like a ghost. Captain Raul Ruiz. Daniel's pulse quickened. "Sam's name is in here," he said softly. Carla nodded. He filed a complaint. It vanished. The walls seemed to close in as Daniel realized this wasn't about one mistake anymore. It was about a system built to bury its own shame. That night, Daniel drove to the Veterans Center, the folder on the passenger seat like a live grenade. Sam sat outside beneath the awning, Kane resting beside him, eyes following the rain. Daniel handed him the file without a word. Sam studied it, his jaw tightening. "They buried it," he said quietly. "Back then, your captain was just a rookie detective. My son. He died in custody." Daniel froze. "Your son?" Sam nodded slowly. "They said it was an overdose. But the bruises told another story." The rain intensified, drumming between them like distant gunfire. "Why didn't you go public?" Daniel asked. Sam's answer was simple, almost broken. Because back then, truth wasn't enough. It needed a badge to carry it. Daniel understood what that meant, and that the badge was now his. Inside the Veterans Hall, Daniel pored over the file again, tracing the faded signatures that told a story no one wanted told. Photos of Michael Rourke, young, proud, uniform pressed. Then autopsy images that screamed injustice. Carla joined him, shaking her head. "This will burn your career," she warned. Daniel looked up, eyes steady. "Maybe that's what justice costs." She hesitated, then nodded. "Then I'm in." The two of them outlined a plan. Release the truth, not through scandal, but through story. Sam's story. As Daniel prepared to face Ruiz, he remembered Sam's quiet line. "It's steadier when shared." Now the cane wasn't just a symbol of respect. It was a torch passed from one generation of service to another, this time lit by truth. The confrontation came at dawn. Ruiz waited in his office, calm but cornered, the file already open on his desk. "You don't know what you're doing," he said, voice low. Daniel set the cane against the desk, the silver star catching morning light. "You do," he replied. Ruiz rose slowly, power etched in every motion. "You think one story changes a system?" Daniel met his gaze. "No, but it changes me, and maybe that's how it starts." Ruiz exhaled, a bitter laugh escaping. "You'll regret this." Daniel turned toward the door. "Maybe, but I'll be able to look people in the eye again." As he walked away, the reflection of the silver star glinted across Ruiz's desk, a mirror of the truth he'd tried to hide. Hours later, the footage went live. Not leaked, but broadcast from Daniel himself. A quiet statement paired with Sam's testimony, released through an independent veterans network. The city stirred, divided between outrage and awakening. Ruiz was placed on leave pending investigation. Daniel sat alone in his car, the cane resting on the seat beside him. Sam called, voice steady but soft. "You what I couldn't," he said. "No," Daniel replied, looking at the city skyline rising in the distance. "I just finished what you started." The silver star caught the last flare of sunset, shining like a medal reborn. For the first time, Daniel felt the weight of justice not as burden, but as balance. By the next morning, the city pulsed with controversy. News anchors argued, commentators dissected, and the department fractured under the weight of exposure. Daniel sat before the review board, the air stale with procedure. Ruiz, still in uniform but stripped of power, glared from across the table. "You went outside the chain of command," one officer accused. Daniel's reply came slow but unwavering. "The chain was broken long before I did." Silence. Carla stood in the back of the room, arms folded, pride hidden behind professionalism. When the session adjourned, Ruiz brushed past him, muttering, "This isn't over." Daniel didn't flinch. Justice had no finish line, only checkpoints along a long, hard road. Outside, Sam waited by the steps, cane tapping softly. They won't thank you for it, he said. Daniel nodded. They don't have to. Outside the courthouse, the crowd divided, some shouting in support, others demanding discipline. Sam stood beside Daniel, the two men united by something neither could fully name. Reporters pushed microphones forward, but Daniel raised his hand. Today isn't about punishment, he said. It's about remembering who we serve. Sam's gaze turned distant, the lines on his face deepening with the ache of memory. A veteran from the crowd stepped forward, saluting Sam. One by one, others followed, forming a silent corridor of respect as Daniel and Sam walked through. For once, the cameras didn't matter. What filled the air wasn't spectacle, but something purer, the fragile, trembling sound of justice finally being heard. That night, Sam invited Daniel and Carla to his home, a small apartment lined with medals, photographs, and silence. Over coffee, Sam finally spoke of Michael's last day. He joined the service because he believed people could still be good, Sam said softly. When he died, I stopped believing, until you made me remember. The words hung heavy between them. Daniel looked at the cane resting against the wall. You never stopped believing, he said. You just needed someone to stand beside it. Carla smiled faintly, breaking the quiet. Then maybe it's time we all start walking on steadier ground. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, but inside the small apartment, the three of them found something close to peace. The kind that doesn't erase the past, but honors it. The next morning, Daniel returned to duty for the first time since the review. His uniform felt different now. Less armor, more promise. The city moved at its usual chaotic pace, but his perspective had slowed, sharpened. As he guided traffic at a busy intersection, an elderly woman struggled with her walker. Without hesitation, Daniel jogged over, steadying her, the cane symbol echoing in every motion. Nearby, Carla watched from the patrol car, smiling. Onlookers who once saw just another cop now saw something else. A man relearning how to serve. When the woman thanked him, Daniel shook his head. Just doing my job, he said. But inside, he knew it meant something deeper. A small, quiet restoration of faith in a world too used to forgetting kindness. That evening, Sam stood by the pier, the ocean wind tugging at his jacket, the cane tapping gently against the wooden planks. Daniel approached, hat in hand. They cleared me, he said quietly, but I'm not sure I care. Sam smiled. Good. That means you learned what mattered. The two men looked out toward the horizon, the kind of endless view that makes the past seem small. Sam handed Daniel the cane once more. Keep it, he said. You'll need it more than I do. Daniel hesitated. You sure? Sam nodded. I've got my balance back. As Daniel walked away, the silver star gleamed one last time in the dying light, and Sam's reflection rippled in the water below. A soldier, a teacher, and at last, a man at peace. The storm came quietly, not from the streets, but from inside the department. Daniel found his shifts shortened, his reports rewritten, his authority eroding in whispers. A new memo labeled him unstable under pressure. Carla caught him reading it, jaw tight. They're circling, she said. Daniel sighed. I expected as much. Captain Rue's desk sat empty now, but his allies weren't. Each hallway felt colder, the silence heavier. Still, Daniel wore the badge, not as defense, but defiance. That night, Sam called. They'll test you, he warned. They want you angry, not right. Daniel looked at the cane leaning in the corner, the silver star glinting under the lamplight. Then I'll give them quiet, he said, voice steady. Because quiet makes them listen. Days passed. Rumors thickened. Daniel's body cam was found malfunctioning. Evidence misplaced, his patrol reassigned to the city's worst blocks. It wasn't coincidence. It was punishment dressed as procedure. But every night he logged his shifts with precision, documenting truth as if building a shield made of honesty. Carla urged him to file a complaint. But Daniel shook his head. You can't fight shadows with noise. You fight them with light. At the Veterans Center, Sam's health began to wane. The stress of reopened wounds weighed heavily. Daniel visited, sitting quietly beside him. Don't lose yourself trying to fix them all, Sam murmured. Daniel's reply came soft. I'm not fixing. I'm remembering. Tension broke one evening during patrol. A confrontation in an alley. Two officers roughing up a suspect, one too young to know restraint, the other too proud to stop. Daniel stepped in, calm but firm. Enough, he said. The older cop turned, sneering. You here to film another redemption story? Daniel's voice didn't rise. I'm here to make sure none of us forget who we are. The silence that followed was electric. Slowly, the others backed off. The suspect, a trembling teenager, looked up at Daniel as if seeing something unfamiliar in a cop's eyes. Empathy. As they walked out of the alley, the air felt heavier, but cleaner. Sometimes Daniel realized justice didn't roar, it whispered. Word spread of what Daniel had done. Again. This time, though whispers carried something different. Respect. Younger officers began seeking his advice. Older ones watched warily. Carla pulled him aside after roll call. You've become what they fear most, she said with a grin. A good example, Daniel smiled faintly, exhaustion softened by purpose. That night he visited Sam once more. The veteran lay resting, his breathing shallow. Daniel sat beside him, holding the cane. You still standing? Sam asked weakly. Daniel nodded. Still trying, Sam smiled, faint but proud. Then, I can rest. Daniel gripped his hand, the weight of legacy pressing like a vow unspoken. The call came before dawn. Sam was gone. Daniel drove to the pier where they had last spoken, the cane across the seat beside him. Dawn stretched over the water, soft and merciful. He stood at the edge, the ocean whispering below. From his pocket, he took the folded apology form he'd once refused to sign, blank, untouched, and set it adrift, watching it dissolve. You taught me how to stand, he whispered. Now I'll walk. The silver star caught the first light of morning, blazing like a promise across the horizon. Daniel turned, uniform crisp, eyes clear. Somewhere in the wind, Sam's voice seemed to echo. Justice isn't a fight, it's a choice. A month after Sam's passing, the precinct felt quieter, not from peace, but from absence. Daniel walked its halls with a steadiness that wasn't arrogance anymore. It was awareness. On his desk sat a small parcel addressed in Sam's neat, shaking handwriting. Inside lay an old military patch and a note. For when you forget why you began. Daniel folded it carefully, placing it beside his badge. Carla approached, voice soft. You could still take the transfer. Start fresh somewhere new. Daniel shook his head. No. Justice doesn't live somewhere else. It lives here if we keep it alive. Outside, the rain began again, steady and familiar. For the first time, Daniel didn't mind it. It sounded like memory washing the city clean. The department reinstated him fully, but the position felt hollow without meaning. Daniel began mentoring new recruits, teaching them not about weapons or procedures, but about restraint, empathy, and courage. You'll see things that'll test you, he told them. But justice isn't a reflex. It's a decision. Some listened, some didn't. But one young recruit, barely out of the academy, lingered after class. Sir, he said shyly, why do you carry that cane? Daniel smiled, resting a hand on it. Because someone steadier than me once did. The recruit nodded, eyes wide, not yet understanding. But one day he would, and that, Daniel thought, was enough to keep trying. One evening, Daniel visited the Veterans Center. A memorial had been added in Sam's honor. A bronze plaque engraved with his name, service years, and a single quote beneath. Honor isn't given, it's lived. Daniel traced the words with his fingertips, the metal cool beneath his skin. Around him, other veterans sat quietly, their stories written in their eyes. He left the silver star cane at the base of the plaque, its reflection merging with the inscription. "You carried enough," he whispered. "Now I'll carry the rest." As he turned to leave, sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the plaque's surface and scattering it across the floor like fragments of light. Fragments of Sam's truth. Weeks later, Daniel began writing again. Not reports, but reflections. Late at night, he filled notebooks with the lessons Sam had left behind, hoping they'd outlast both badge and uniform. Carla read one draft quietly, eyes glistening. "You should publish this," she said. "People need to hear it." Daniel shook his head. "Not yet. This isn't about my name." She smiled. "Then it already belongs to everyone." Outside, thunder rolled again. Gentle this time, like a pulse beneath the city's heartbeat. For the first time, Daniel didn't feel small against it. He felt part of something enduring. A rhythm older than anger, steadier than pride. At dawn, Daniel walked the same street where it all began. The cracked sidewalk, the blinking crosswalk, the hum of traffic. He stopped at the corner, looking at the faint imprint where the cane had once fallen. The city was waking, unaware of the quiet redemption beneath its noise. He straightened his uniform, eyes on the horizon. Somewhere, he imagined Sam's voice, not commanding, just present. "Stand steady, son." Daniel smiled faintly, crossing the street as the light turned green. This time he moved not out of duty, but out of understanding. The silver star no longer needed to shine from metal. It lived in him now. A reminder that true justice isn't in the law you enforce, but in the humanity you choose to see.